great thing to see. The subject matter of our panel would be the trends in global eFX trading. What happened? Perhaps we would start with the panelists to say a few words about how technologically and in terms of business we managed to go through and survive this year, where we are now, and are we going back to any normal state? This new situation is a new normalcy, I would say. Perhaps, Sasha, you can start. Hello, friends. Thank you for being invited here. Thank you for being able to take part in this conference, even under such challenging circumstances. I welcome my colleagues on the screen. The pandemic, of course, had a large effect on the markets, and we had, but maybe not that strong as we feared. We see that the market experiences the same things that the educational entertainment markets experience. When you have less offline opportunities, less contacts with people, you have to work remotely. You don't have 6 screens, but you have to use only 2 at your home, and the very infrastructure is changing that market participants have. And these make some challenges. Interestingly enough, we have an explosive-like growth in the use of the online technologies by our clients, something that we discussed with our clients, with our panelists a couple of years back. We thought that it was more futuristic back then, but this is something that we see already today. Algos is something that helps people to delegate part of the work to the technologies, and despite the technological constraints, they can also manage better their risks. Together with the other services which are offered by banks, including by Sberbank, with analytics, you receive a tool set that becomes the new normal. So are you working from home or from office? What about your team? What is the split between offline and online in your team? We actually split between several locations so that we can have full access to the full infrastructure and provide our clients with the full range of services. So all your staff more or less works in the offices, but in different locations. Yes, the trading people are working in the offices. But mostly people in Moscow work remotely. What about you? 99%. Hello to all of you. About 99% of our staff is working remotely, in London at least. And initially, perhaps within a couple of days, we had a full conversion to remote working, and then the management said that you can, of course, go to your office if you wish so, but only 1% wants to go to the office, as far as I understand. Well, sometimes you need to come to the office because people are used to have more screens, and at home it is not that easy to have many screens installed. But my observation is that people want to go to office when they don't have comfortable conditions to work from home, like many kids, etc. And looks like in your company, people do have comfortable conditions. What about you, Zhenya? You just came to head the algo trading of Alfa-Bank. Indeed, I actually joined Alfa-Bank only yesterday, and the situation of this year, I watched it in a small institution and how it tried to cope with the situation. I know that Alfa-Bank 50/50 works offline and online. I'm talking about the financial markets people. My personal view is that as of today, and I'm only trying to grasp the full picture of the situation, I see that the pandemic had a lot of effect on society. I thought that it would not have much effect on what we are doing. I mean the e-trading. In practice, in a small team, I thought that at least if you take the front office, it should work together, work from office, to have many screens in front of their eyes, to feel the shoulder of your colleague, so to say. But however, if you're talking about a close-knit team, they just seem to really move home in a second. It did not affect the work that they were doing, even from home. The only challenge here is that when you work from remotely, I mean, there's a challenge of trying to bringing more people on board. But if again this is kind of like one team, there are no challenges working online or offline. Unless, of course, you talk about some data security and informational security. If it is all okay, then it's okay. So there's a big effect on society, but shouldn't have much impact on the business. Anton, what about your data security, your cybersecurity? Anton, can you hear us? What about cybersecurity? Can we hear you over Zoom?
Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we managed to deal with that. As Evgeny has said, we didn't experience any problems in getting to remote work. Actually, it accelerated many processes connected with automatization. The fine-tuned algo processes, from our perspective, it played a good role. Now there are some exceptions to normal life, but of course it didn't harm business. That's what we can see right now. Michael, what about you? Are you working remotely right now? No, I'm working from the office. I would say that we have kind of seamless shift to remote work, which is not quite typical for a B2B bank. Everything happened smoothly and seamlessly. On the 31st of March, we were told that we were supposed to get to remote work, and about 90% of the people turned to remote mode. And starting from May, we are on a shift basis, about 20 to 25% of staff we have in the office. And the only thing which I feel a bit strange, I don't know how to get out of this. You feel quite well when you don't have many people around you, and maybe you don't need them in place. And these are quite kind of strange thoughts. That's what I think as well. Is the world going to be the same as we knew it before? I don't think so. There's some changes coming. Andrey, probably you are doing well. Good morning to everyone. Igor has said much about us. Everything happened so fast, and our management, as in trading, decided to shift to remote mode in March. I'm very surprised by the number of changes which happened in life, in work. And Michael is right to have said that now we are kind of anticipating what is going to happen further. Now, taking this opportunity, I'd like, as an investment, our response to the virus is the launch of early trading on the stock exchange, and we are launching 7 a.m. early spot and FX trading. And if you can see these red glasses full of coffee, for those who work remotely, we're going to reach you with our coffee. I'm sure that we're going to deal with the virus thanks to the sport we're engaged in, thanks to these many years professional habit to take different substitutions and this social distancing, and which is proved by Michael, Anton, and me. We're doing this social distancing right now. So let's have some additives from you to our homemade coffee. Let's discuss what happened at the markets. Over this time, we are particularly interested in what has happened to ruble, what has happened to liquidity of the capital of the different flows between the pricing strategies between Moscow and London. This is constant intrigue in place since ruble is a unique currency which cannot be singled out by a geographical center of pricing. Alexandr, can you share your findings with us? Being the biggest FX market operator, what can you see? How has the situation changed due to volatility, the structure of trading itself, the share of internalization, the use of different platforms, risk mitigation approaches? How has the interaction with the client changed? From the perspective of the structure of the market, I'm going to say that there are significant changes rather than a couple of findings, which are purely connected with the surge of internalization and the significance of big platforms, aggregators of liquidity. Overall, we witnessed high volatility, wild volatility, and it is still in place. The volume of trading is higher compared with the conventional times, which is great on all the platforms and which can be witnessed on our platform as well. There is a surge in liquidity. There is a surge in volatility. Always triggers active trading in retail, share of the market, in the corporate share of the market as well. And of course, inside our platform, we can see internalization growing thanks to higher trading volume. This high volatile market, that was still the case. So you were happy to undertake the risks which occurred. We are happy to undertake the risk because we understand how to work with the risks. We have a very developed system of algo trading in our platform. All the products which we offer to our clients, we are, as physicians, try to test them on ourselves, and those things which have been tested, which operate quite sufficiently and efficiently, are provided to our clients. This is connected with the algo, with analytics, with VI. And we are ready to provide our clients with the maximum liquidity. Apart from that, we're trying to keep our prices at a better level compared with our competitors. In order to do that, we need to have a lot of sources of liquidity. To this end, we need to have a very well-developed platform capable of mitigating and dealing with these risks. Overall, answering your questions, I see two major trends in place. I've been elaborating the first trend. This is algo trading popularity increase, algo orders increase. As we joking at the desk, this is just a mode of transportation, a standard tool to increase the efficiency of our partners, of our treasurers, of our traders, and so on and so forth. So you're developing algos which you call somehow, and you offer to your clients for the execution. That's right, absolutely right. We're trying to test these inside our platform, and then we offer these services to our clients. In the course of the year, we have witnessed exponential growth of algo orders against conventional ones. A significant share of searching volumes is happening thanks to algo, since our clients are testing the flavor, the comfort, and the quality of that tool. Important to say that the algo itself doesn't give any competitive edge, since it can be easily replicated. But we are saying that it is important to have a holistic approach to the number of sources. We have post-trading analytics. We have very fast system of settlements. We need to provide research into the markets for the clients to understand what is happening. This is necessary to be provided in a single shell, in a single platform. We're not saying that Sber is promoting individual products. We're trying to give holistic solutions to our clients clients, including settlements, analytics, AI components, and algo. Algo is a very integral, but one out of these many bricks of the puzzle. This is the second point I'd like to mention. Our market is shifting to the competition of the platform mode, thanks to a number of services and components such a platform should include. The entry into this market is going to be more expensive and more complicated for the new players to come. Overall, we do not position ourselves as a liquidity provider, and being a market maker, we position ourselves as a partner. The partner which provides very comfortable solutions to the clients for them to be able to work holistically on the market to get the access to the tools, to the informations, and such technological things as settlements. From the perspective of the execution, just a simple question to give vivid examples. Have you experienced any changes? If you have a big corporate client and it requires a transaction, a big transaction, 100 million of US dollars approximately, gives the request for the price. So what is the threshold was and what is the threshold right now? From the perspective of a tick like that, or there is no threshold as whole, from the perspective of a spread. Or you just answer that we do not want to see that huge transaction executed on the market. We would like to teach you best practices. Let's unbundle these transactions, timing approach. What is interaction like that? First of all, we have the principal position that we are ready to guarantee any volume it requires. $100 million is not limited, so we have even bigger transactions in place. And we stick to the approach, maybe 1 billion. Yeah, might be the case. So we're going to have quotations for any transaction to our client. Apart from that, we are ready to offer different ways how to do that. We are going to do how the client sees fit. If the client wants to get a single quotation, anticipated quotation, fixed quotation, we're going to do that. If the client is interested in lower market impact and there is kind of tolerance of the outcome price, our sales colleagues, which are quite great specialists, are going to explain what additional opportunities there are in place, how you can work with this request, how you can deal with further requests. So the client is going to have a number of options how to execute this big transaction. We're going to assist in opting for the best way for him to do. Andrey, from your perspective, could you comment on how the structure of the FX market has changed, how OTC, interbank market volumes interact with each other, what you see in your glasses? What has happened this year?
Да, ну, наверное, первое, что хочется сказать, это
the volatility has come unexpectedly, as usually. There were some disagreements. There was a lockdown, the pandemic situation, and then the economies were provided stimulus, and then the election coming. The only conclusion. There is some kind of misconnection problem. Unfortunately, we cannot hear Andrey right now.
Ну, пока с Андреем восстанавливается связь, вот все-таки издержки.
There are some backsides of online technologies.
Можно, наверное, тогда ты хотел прокомментировать, да, Жень?
Yeah, we can hear Andrey talking about what we can see on the Moscow exchange in terms of volumes. The map, which you can see right now. Can you see the map? Yeah, we can see the map. Balagana. This is MOEX clients map operating globally. Everything in red, these are the dots of MOEX presence, and this curve is proved by B statistics. Reported transactions. We have more than 120 countries trading. It's quite a good result globally. I'm going to talk fast about the volumes, which stake we have, which pie size we have. Can you anticipate what is the volume of ruble trading on the market? Let's look at a different angle. And last BIS report say that in offshore rubles traded even to a big extent compared with Russia. That was allegedly flash surge, 40 billion. That was the anticipated amount. We decided to check that figure. Let's look at that. Let's look at the April statistics that the Bank of England provided its statistics, and the Bank of International Settlements and American statistics. So MOEX 5.5 billion volume. That was Igor said that was a surge, 20 to 30%, up to 50% a particular period of time. Then we can see this interbank market. So together with our desk guys, we analyzed that figure. The people in the panel, banks, trading about 15 billion aggregated number per day. If you can see these figures, the local banks, according to 701 form, what the bank report, sometimes they do not mark it in the right way, sometimes they reporting some stuff. The 701 form says that interbank in Russia about 1.5 billion, and transactions with foreign offshore is around 2.5 billion. Yeah, let's move further. The next big segment is the banks trading with the clients. That's what Alexandr has said already. You can easily quote 1 billion, 11 billion at the peak time. This is the constant figure which doesn't change even due to the volatility on the market. This is within the range of 9 to 11 billion. These are the transactions with the clients. We need to see the trend that the client transactions are mostly of e-nature rather than dealer forms, as the share of dealer transactions going down. The next issue that we need to discuss is what is happening abroad. London, about 7 billion. New York, around 3 billion. We are moving to the final figure very fast, 2 billion for other countries. Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Japan. These are the countries we go into with our early trading. At the peak, we had 32 billion. At the peak figure. On the spot market, we have 32 billion for us to understand the stake situation. So what are we splitting together with you? And now, I'd like to get back to Spring B's outlook and to ask a reverse question. Please, let us understand that within the geopolitical risks, the price moves on emerging markets is happening through offshore markets. So the price is determined by foreign markets. So the question to the panelists. So we saw a flash surge both in liquidity and in new groups of participants. The individuals started to perform much better. Now we have 13% compared with 8% year-on-year. This is a huge number of individuals, you and me, trading for the sake of 2 kopecks of return, 1.5 rubles return, which is not that bad actually in the current situation. In our booklets, we say that the MOEX is the biggest pool of ruble liquidity, and this is the center of ruble pricing, and we do believe in that. So the question to the panelists: where is the ruble rate determined? Is it connected with the broad influence in shock times? Alexandr, can you answer this question? First of all, this is a very interesting slide. Thank you very much for this slide of yours. Very good analytics. I couldn't even imagine that this is the number of countries trading in ruble globally. As for the exchange, I'd like to support you. It's a big competitive edge of our currency that we have a very transparent center of pricing. This is what you have discovery and transparency by MOEX is a huge advantage of them that we need to maintain in the years to come. As for liquidity inflow, of course, there are flash moves can result from the supply and demand of big lots by the speculators, but I do believe that long trends of weeks nature, from my perspective, are of more macroeconomic character, shaped not by the hundreds but by the thousands and hundreds of those transactions from the Russian market.
So that's about the feeling of the local participants about what is going to happen to the currency, how the clients react to geopolitical news, or is it volatility, or are we saying that a local client base can have a stronger effect on the exchange rate, even in times of shocks? Yes, but let me add that I'm fascinated by our retail and resilience. We see some counter-cyclical behavior of the clients. Every fluctuation up of the exchange rate meets quite an opposition from the retailers who sell it or buy it at the bottom. It's another buffer which we never had before. This year we see it stronger. Mikhail, Palei, you as a bank with international presence, and Anton, perhaps you can provide some thoughts about the pricing center. Perhaps I should start to be the first. I agree that the pricing framework is set locally at the exchange, and it can be easily traced. The exchange rate before 10 a.m. and after 10 a.m., the quotes before and after, they are quite different. And as soon as you have the exchange online, and until about the moment when the most of the Russian participants leave the platform, you would see some changes in the spreads. In the evening and at night, although there are still some clients, the exchange rate is more volatile with a broader spread. However, just a couple of words about the recent trend. It is almost over. It started in 2014 with the Ukrainian events and the big drop in the oil prices. We saw quite a redistribution of shares, of trades and exchange rate setting and trends with a bias towards the foreign participants. Until then, foreign participants were quite minimally represented, but when we had some local events and because of the contraction of exports as well as export-import operations because of the falling oil and gas prices, plus the central bank did a fantastic job to more or less cut this gray outflow of capital from the country, and hence we saw that local interests were replaced by foreign interest. And indeed, it's kind of like they do provide quite an impact on what is going on here. So retail, indeed, retail became very proactive of late, and this supported ruble is provided. Well, we see some counter trends in Russian retail, and indeed this helps to buffer the volatility a bit. Well, maybe this runs counter to the prevailing opinion among the population that about the opposite, but we have a different trend now. Presentation by Ina, indeed, who is present here on the panel. Perhaps you can comment on behalf of a company which provides services of prime brokerage across the world, including to Russian clients, and you have your own information about that. Perhaps you can share some thoughts about that and how the ruble looks like in the international context. I should say that, first of all, we are more or less like a credit mediator. My colleagues discussed the market from the point of view of market makers, and they discussed quoting. We look more at the volume and at the growth or decrease in the level of volumes of currency. So we are not taking the risks. We are providing an access for market makers and liquidity users through certain venues. This slide shows just one platform where we actually manage liquidity ourselves, and that's the only platform. As Prime of Prime and Mediator, we serve several platforms. EBS or FastMatch, there we only provide brokerage services, and in one we do control liquidity. We took this data from March 1, 2019 until September 30. The blue one is ruble. It is quite clear that we see a stronger share of the ruble. I think that I would agree here with my colleagues about that it is important for the market participants to have trust and confidence in counterparties and pricing. I actually specifically added the Turkish lira here because in May, the Central Bank of Turkey actually went out into the market with some ambiguous statements about the three major banks of there and their participation in the local market. And this continued for 3 days. They were prohibited from trading and then they were admitted back into the market. But however, those steps that were made or that were taken actually made the market to feel some concerns because people are trying to abandon that currency. Something that we don't see about the ruble. Actually, we see a stronger demand for the ruble. Now, anything related to goods, I actually showed here gold. Again, we see a growth in the volume of gold. For comparison's sake, I did the acolytes. I would not be naming names and I would not be giving you any absolute numbers because of the compliance requirements. Perhaps I can see the next slide. This is a trend that we can observe. We took the same period between and for one broker who is doing only clearing. This is not us, it is a different broker. And we took a certain venue, and we see that the volumes for the same period grew. And next slide. And the share of the ruble is also growing in all sectors there. I should say that during the pandemic, I would agree with my colleagues that the unity within the team means a lot. But we as a group also managed to add another major company, which is providing retail services. And I see that we are in line with the trend. We are focusing on that market. The share of the ruble is very small in that company, but we'll see it next year, how they are going to develop, given the fact that they will be also capturing that market. Thank you. Thank you, Ina. And we launched a question, or rather a survey of the audience online right now. What are the liquidity providers? Can you show some preliminary feedback from the audience on that question? What are the liquidity providers, international providers or local Russian providers, managed to improve their pricing during the pandemic, during this year? That's the question, and we already have quite a number of comments on that. I would ask the audience also to continue providing their feedbacks, and please, when those results are ready, please put them on screen. Anton, would you like to comment on what you heard, maybe just briefly, or you may have another contribution? Well, I have some brief comments about the geography. I can also refer to what Andrey was saying, that there is some influence on the market, also on the part of the non-residents. And here, perhaps I would also like to touch upon the question of what has been happening since March, and I'd like to show you what we did, how we managed to cope with the situation, and what kind of stress we had in the liquidity sector since March. Can you see my slide? Yes, we do. So we called this COVID-19 situation the stress test of 2020. And as usual, in March, we saw that the hedge funds, the foreign hedge funds or non-resident hedge funds, were, slow in pricing at the MOEX. Some actually left MOEX, but there was high volatility in March. Well, local participants were more active, but what did the local participants do during March, April 2020? Well, many of them were protective. They were quoting from 1 to 3 million US, although in the past they were quoting up to 30 million. So we were talking about small amounts of money, and we saw in the OTC flows that the prices were indicative. When you tried to do the transaction, it was only partial execution, and many providers disconnected their prices during the day. So in this situation, what would a client do or have to do when you have from 1 to 5 providers who behave it like this? Of course, the volumes dropped, the spreads grew. The liquidity providers started to disconnect and leave. And our experience showed what was the feedback from our clients. Indeed, the clients were more interested, and the stress test of 2020 showed that working with a provider who tries to keep the risks on their books and who minimize the market inputs and who can provide liquidity in any environment, be it crisis or no crisis. So you test your friends in times of trouble. And of course, there's my AI and ML and internalization, how they look like, and how can we compare to the experience of our competitors. In March, April, as our experience shows, our novelties in AI and ML and offered by our developers. So our technologies made it possible for us to do nothing during March, April. The technologies themselves adapted to new spreads, to new conditions, to new trends in terms of market inputs. But there are also banks that do a lot of manual trading there. They had to rely on the traders. And it was painful to some of the clients because traders were not able to work as efficiently as algos and trace their execution or optimize their trades, which provides a worse price for the clients, and hence it is quite a negative impact on the client. And we also saw, which was quite strange, that in March, April, we had a higher level of internalization. We started to keep a bit more on us than market to the market. And this is the important trend, that for the client it is important not how we internalize and how much, 60 or 85% within our books, but rather it is important for the client what would be the market impact. How do we execute clients' orders, and would that execution create some negative impact, pricing effect for the clients? Say they sell at one price and then the market grew, and in a minute the client could have sold at a higher price just because we executed the transaction wrongly. So a high level of internalization, well, many are talking about this. However, this is also quite a debatable issue, because you can internalize but do it without too much skill, and then when you quote with the OTC provider, you can skew incorrectly, which would provide a higher market impact compared to your closing early. Anton, we only have 1 minute for our panel. Well, that's about it that I wanted to share with you. I can share some statistics that in March 2020, probably you can skip the first 3 brokers, but from number 5 down there, so many are present here on the panel, you can see the level of internalization among those players. I mean, you cannot talk about a high level of internalization there. However, we also saw that this is not really too much important for the market. Thank you, Anton. And I think that we need to sum up our panel, because we are expecting another panel. Some survey results. In accordance with the survey, the international liquidity providers actually are losing to the Russian liquidity providers, as you can see, which is probably a good sign that the Russian providers are winning, but we are in the Russian environment after all. I should say that I totally agree with the outcome of the survey, and Anton mentioned that about the role of certain Russian providers. On the part of the Russian providers, we don't see that. And if you take geography, then the geography of liquidity providers is London, Moscow for us, and liquidity consumers geography is the northern hemisphere from the US to Mongolia. Now, on this fine tune, and we are going